Good evening and welcome everybody. This is the first meeting for Mother's Rest at Four Corners. It's the community meeting for the upcoming park renovation project. My name is Lauren Bryant and I am the project manager for this exciting project for Boston Parks. Before we jump into the presentation, I'd just like to go over a few how-tos and what to expect tonight. Wanted to let everybody know that interpretation was not requested for this meeting, so tonight's meeting will be in English only. However, for future meetings, we are really eager to hear all voices and are able to offer translation and interpretation services as requested free of charge. So please reach out to me if you want any more information about that, and you can email me and I will pop my email address in the chat for everybody. Wanted to also make sure that everybody knows that tonight's meeting is being recorded, and that is so that it'll be available on the project website within about a week. So that's a good time to also let you know that we have a project website. We'll be updating this throughout the project. I will also put that link in the chat for you guys right now as well. Wanted to thank you guys all for making it tonight. However, I do understand how meetings can be challenging, and you may have friends and neighbors who aren't able to join tonight. So please share what you learned tonight or direct people to our project website for them to view the recorded meeting when their schedule allows. Wanted to ensure that everybody's conversation feels comfortable tonight and that everyone feels as if they're comfortable sharing their questions and comments. Please be respectful and mindful of others' time so that everybody has the opportunity to participate. Once you've submitted or asked a question, please wait till others have had a chance to ask questions as well before submitting another one. You can always set up a separate side conversation with me and email me and we can set something up. Also just want to ask that during the presentation portion, if everybody could keep their selves muted, that way we don't have a lot of feedback so everybody can hear. Couple Zoom tips. Just want to make sure that everybody, I know we've all done a lot of Zooms, but tonight we're going to have a couple different ways that people can engage with us. We'll be sharing a short presentation and have open discussion at the end. But in the meantime, if a question pops up in your head and you want to make sure that we have it for the discussion or to ask in the middle, there is the chat button at the bottom of your screen. Should look like a text bubble icon, and you'll be able to send us a message that way. So if we could just test that out and make sure that people know where that is. Just going to ask a quick question. If you want to pop your answer in the chat, that would be great. We're just curious how often you visit the park. Daily, a few times a week, once a month. Maybe you only join for special events that happen in the park, or maybe you don't use the park at all, but would like to see some changes so that you want to use the park. So if people could find that chat button at the bottom of their screen and share a few thoughts with us, that would be great. And hopefully that takes care of all the housekeeping information. Deb, next slide, please. Thank you. So now onto the project. We know it's hard to take time for the community meetings in the evening, so I just want to say thank you again to everybody. It certainly shows that this park is really well loved to see that we've got a good turnout tonight, so thank you. First, we'll introduce the design team and our parks team. We'll do a quick project overview, and then we'll get into our presentation of existing conditions of the park. And then we'll have time for discussion at the end, like I was saying, after that short presentation. Next slide, please. And for those who joined a little late, my name is Lauren Bryant, and I'm the project manager for Boston Parks for this project, as well as about 8 to 10 others throughout the city. Christine Brandeo is our outreach coordinator. She's a great resource for general park questions and also park friends groups. Our design team for this project is DMLA, and Deb Myers will be presenting for the design firm tonight. And I'll let her introduce herself and her team at the beginning of her presentation. And then next slide. So tonight we're going to be talking about Mother's Rest at Four Corners. So hopefully that's why you guys are all here. As you all know, this is an amazing park and it has so much potential. But we also know that there are parts of the park that are not well connected, and there are spaces that are underutilized or not used the way the community would like them to. This project is going to look at addressing all of that. We'll be looking at both the upper portion of the park along Washington Street and the lower portion along Claiborne Street. I am curious if people in the neighborhood refer to the two parts of the park by specific names. So feel free to put it in the chat. Let us know if there is. I tend to refer to them as the upper and lower terraces, but if there's something that the community already calls them, I'd love to know that too. The project is kicking off tonight. So this is the first thing that we're doing with the project. So don't feel like you've missed anything if you haven't seen us before. This is our first community meeting, and we're here tonight so that we can listen to you guys, to hear your thoughts on the park and to better understand the needs and concerns of the community. Like I said, it's our first meeting, which means we haven't designed anything yet. We aren't coming to you with any preconceived notions. At this meeting, we're going to talk about the park, what we see, what the designers have seen when they're out there, talk about the scope of the project. We're going to get a sense of what works and what doesn't, and what the community feels like is important to save. And what needs to be upgraded or changed. We understand that there was an unfortunate scheduling issue with this meeting falling on Yom Kippur, and we apologize for that. For anyone that you know who is maybe missing this evening's meeting for that reason or others, again, please feel free to pass along that the meeting will be posted on the project website. In addition, we have another opportunity to share this same information and gather feedback next week on Thursday, September 23rd from 4 to 6 p.m. We'll be hosting a pop-in at the park. The design team and myself will be there so we can talk through these same things, actually have some face-to-face interactions, which I know I miss, and be able to actually talk things through while we're looking at the park. So we hope you join us for that, even if you are here tonight. We're currently holding October 19th for our second meeting. And between this meeting and the pop-up, and then the design team will take that information and we'll be creating several design ideas from what we heard. At the second meeting in October, we'll share those design ideas with you guys and get your feedback. Then we'll work after that to finalize a cohesive design based on everything we've heard. And then we'll host a third community meeting, likely in the fall, late fall, to share that with you and to hear your thoughts. Did we get it right? Did we hear you correctly? Will this be the park that you hope it's going to be? So then after that, we'll finalize the design over the winter and bid the project. And then hoping to start construction this coming spring of 2022. And the estimated cost of the construction is $1.4 million. So it's very exciting, a really great investment for the community, and hopefully we can do a lot of really great stuff with that. Next slide, please. And just so that you guys all know, there's a lot that goes into park design. So we just want to make sure that everybody is aware of all of these different things that come into play while we're going through a project. There are community input, which is super important, and it's why we're here tonight and why we'll be doing our pop-in next week. Safety and regulatory guidelines such as ADA, City of Boston priorities, and parks and recreation goals. Next slide, please. And during the project planning, we like to prioritize expanding access to parks so that more people can get to parks, addressing equity and climate resiliency, promoting public health, and building strong communities. Next slide, please. We also prioritize park-specific goals, which overlap with the city priorities and include the creation of parks which are accessible and available to all, provide diverse and balanced programming, work with our communities, and promote connections within neighborhoods and the broader city community. So all of these goals, along with everything we hear from the community, are going to help lead us on this park design journey together. So I'm really excited. And I'm going to stop talking now because you guys don't want to hear me. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Deb to start the presentation. And just a reminder, please take and put something in the chat if you want to, or we'll open it up for discussion after the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren. And thank you everybody who's listening in, who's taking the time out to participate in what I hope to be a very exciting, very rewarding public process around the redevelopment of Mother's Rest at Four Corners. So I'm Deb Myers. I started my firm 6 years ago, DMLA, and I have my entire team here tonight. Jeff Toma, another principal in my office, Tim Nickerson, who's tuning in from overseas, and I have Yuhan G and Chris McCormick in the wings, furiously writing down everything that's said tonight. So I guess I really wanted to kind of reiterate what Lauren had said. You know, we as a firm, and myself in particular, like I really can't design until I hear from the community, hear from the users, hear from, you know, the neighborhood of what your issues are, what your goals are. So tonight, you know, we're going to share our assessment of the site, you know, both in terms of opportunities and constraints. But you know the park better, you know your neighborhood better, no matter how many times that we come to the site. So we're really, you know, it's a partnership. So really feel free to ask us questions, and I look forward to meeting as many of you as I can next week. So we start our thinking about a project or thinking about a site in terms of the context in the neighborhood. So Mother's Rest is the big pink X in the middle of the screen, and we have Franklin Park to the left and Marina Bay to the right. We have, you know, the neighborhood is bound by both, you know, major highways as well as two different, you know, our commuter rail and the Red Line train. And it also is right on Washington Street, which, you know, the few times I've been out there to the site, you know, there's the bus line, there's a lot of people coming through the site, both from the neighborhood, you know, up to Washington Street, and then, you know, the Washington Street corridor down to the site. So all of this sort of builds how we think about this park. Another diagram as part of our site analysis is the 5, 10, and 15-minute walk. Again, Mother's Rest is right at the heart of this diagram, shown in pink. I love pink. And then, you know, we have, you know, within that 5-minute, that sort of easy walking distance, we have some community gardens, both the Fannie Lou Hamer Community Garden, the Nightingale. And then in the 10-minute walk, we start to see parks that have, you know, some walking trails, some sort of passive open space, another playground, basketball court, more community gardens. And then in that outer ring, we see, you know, some parks with maybe some more amenities, you know, water play, swing sets, picnic spaces, and then Harambee Park, which has more athletic fields, and the same with Ronan Park. So this helps us also see where the gaps are. But again, we want to hear from you either in the chat or in our discussion time about what you feel is working at this park program wise, as well as what we may want to try to incorporate if we can. So here's our site in plan to orient you. Washington Street, which is on the high side, and Claiborne Street, which is on the lower side. The overall park character of the site, you know, this park was done, I think, maybe 20, 25 years ago. It was renovated. So there was some benches added, the stairs were increased. A lot of the planting that you see today was installed at that time, this nice overlook. But there's some great trees. There's a main connector spine through the site. And then, as you know, this upper plaza, as I heard the neighborhood calls it, you know, great views out to the bay, out to the rest of that section of the city. So it has a lot of different qualities to it. And I'd love to hear what qualities you like about the park and what you think is working. So the park zones, as I said, on Claiborne Street, we have the lower terrace, which we'll start to call the playground zone. We have both play equipment for the 5 and up range, and then also we have the younger kids from the age 2 to 5. Both of these areas, the equipment is functional and safe, if not, maybe a little outdated and maybe not as exciting as some of the newer equipment out there. There's also a relatively flat lawn area that has some nice trees and shade. I've seen some small groups exercising and doing some stretches there. We have the accessible kind of ramp that goes around this knoll to get us up to the base of that play area from Claiborne Street. Coming in from Washington Street, again, this is aptly named by Jen in the chat as the plaza, which that's exactly what it is. And it's a really, I think, quite successful or maybe quite, appropriate location for an area for people to gather, to watch the sunset, to watch fireworks, to sort of gather. But there's also some nice, more intimate spaces, spaces for picnic tables and some benches. And then also what I think is a quite interesting and unique gateway arch securing the top of the site. So the park views, I touched a little bit. I'd love to hear if these are important to you as excited as I am, the first, second, and third time that I showed up at the site. But you do, even with the mature trees and the density of the neighborhood in the residential homes on Claiborne Street in that neighborhood, you really do get a wonderful vista. And this is, I think, quite unique. The city of Boston has elevation change, but I have noticed, the few interactions I've had with people in the neighborhood, people just coming here to enjoy themselves on the way to work, people coming at the end of their day, or people waiting to meet people on the bus. So I think, again, I would like to hear from you on whether or not both the quality and the size of the spaces, but also, what's important? Is this view part of the identity to the park? Is it something we really want to preserve? So sun and shade, as landscape architects, we have to balance a lot of different things, both science and ecology, with how people use spaces, codes and safety. But for me, one of the, you all know how hot it was some of those days this summer. We also had a lot of rain. So when we look at the site, I'm looking at mature trees, areas where we have shade. Shade is really great in the summertime. And it's also, sun is also, powerful for growing things, for vitamin D, but also how to balance having places in the park that are both full of sun, but also places where we can cool down in the summer. So that ends sort of my analysis of the park. Lauren, do you think it's a good time maybe for people to chime in, or should I start with the questions?
Yeah, I think if people have general park comments, because one of the things that we're going to get into in a few minutes is sort of talking about the future and sort of how you see the space and things that you might be interested in. So I think it might be a good time to sort of have people chime in, whether it's the chat if you're more comfortable, or if you'd like to raise your hand, we can call on people and have them unmute just so that everybody's not talking at the same time. But if people want to talk and are comfortable with that, we'd love to hear directly from you guys. Comments on what you heard, things that you want us to know that work well, that don't work well, things that you hope to see here, or things that used to be here that aren't anymore. So please feel free to chime in. We'd love to hear from you guys.
feel free to raise your hand and I will let you unmute yourself. CJ, you can go ahead.
Hey, good night, everyone. I really appreciated the comment about the lawn area where people usually work out. Frequently, older men, including myself, also use the playground for age 5 and up to work out also. So if we could find a space for some type of pull-up bars, dip bars, something kind of similar in some sense to what Almond Park has, that would be really great. The area is frequently used by older guys to work out too, so that'd be really cool. And then in terms of the elevation, I don't know how much we could do there, but I do love the fact that there is a hill there because it's great for just like hill runs and stuff like that. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
That's
Yeah.
fabulous.
And it's really helpful to know the parks that you guys see things at that you like. So thanks for letting us know that you like the ones at Almont Park too. That's really helpful.
Yeah, exercise has been on my mind.
Jen, you can unmute yourself.
Thanks, Christina. I had my kids here. I'm on Tonawanda itself, and I had my kids here on 2008 and 9. And the thing that I promised other parents I'd bring to this is just being really sad that there aren't swings at this park. That it was the thing that in the immediate vicinity, sometimes they're too young still to do the play type things, which we're trying to have some level of getting them exposed to the parks and the outdoors and stuff. So even if it's just 2 bucket swings and 2 strap swings, integrating them would be really nice for people with younger kids. Mine are older now, but it was something that we walked to Town Field for, but that felt more challenging some days than others. I do think that the space that you're talking about for the exercise area has been really, like, it's not very coherent. We don't have, it doesn't have a purpose, which is fine, but I feel that means that it ends up getting underutilized. So taking some of that space for some of the passive, more adult-based recreation type equipment feels, and that way it would be shaded too, where preserving things like the plaza for really open space for community events, without burdening it with fixed, immovable stuff. Though the telescopes would be a great addition and wouldn't take up much space. I would finally say that it generally feels like the 20-year ago attempt at accessibility. And both in terms, I just would really love to see it more welcoming and capable of being used by people who have different movement disabilities, like the knoll around the edge, like railings or markings, or being able to tell where the grade is changing and stuff. Those have concerned me over time. And I know, like, my father-in-law is like 96 now, and he won't go up there anymore because he's afraid of falling. So whereas he used to for a while ago. So I know there's new techniques that you know much better than I do about making parks welcoming in that way. So I just want to emphasize that those of us who see that it's not working perfectly, but we don't know how to fix it, appreciate you including that in your design proposals.
Thank you, Jen. I really appreciate
Thank
your
you.
thoughts, especially on the accessibility, because it is something that Boston Parks really tries to do, is not just meet ADA, but to go above ADA and to try to make our parks as inclusive as possible. So I really appreciate that you're thinking through all of that as well.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful feedback.
Teresa?
Good evening, everyone. I chair the United Neighborhood Association, as well as sit on the Main Street Board. And some of us members from Main Streets, as well as UNA, did a walkthrough a while back. And like CJ said, we definitely think we need exercise equipment. And I think it should be a separate space from the playground. And like Jen said, we definitely want a real playground. We want swings, we want slides, we want what other parks have. And some of our community members even thought a sprinkler might be nice. And I have pictures that I can show you next week at the pop-up. My daughter goes to a park in East Boston, and it's really beautiful. And she's like, why can't we have that in our park? We definitely want the upper part of Mother's Rest to be able to have yoga, maybe some kind of seating where we could have concerts and poets and that kind of stuff. Definitely want to incorporate the telescopes, as Marilyn said, because we have such a beautiful view. And we also would like the lower part at the very end, not the end, like going towards Dakota Street, that little space there. Perhaps we could use that as a doggy park. And that could be fenced off and separated. And it's already stairs there, so I think we could just fix that up and make it at a nice little park where they are walking their dogs inside the park and not just all over the community. So those are some of the thoughts that we thought of when we did our walkthrough. I'm looking forward to hearing from others. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Really appreciate all the comments.
Marilyn.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm excited about finally being able to participate in just looking at our open spaces and helping to design or co-design what it could look like and how it would benefit everyone in the community. And so like Teresa said, I too am on the board of Main Streets, and through our walkthrough, we looked at every piece of that park and actually designed it ourselves, but we're gonna let the whole community process work. But yeah, like right up at the top, that beautiful overlook, to have the telescopes over there, suggests, you know, it as part educational. We have 3 schools in the immediate area. I think it would be beneficial to have the schools come over, utilize that space, use telescopes to learn about the land around them. And then all those hills that are kind of like underutilized, they have some plants there, but for them to do some more planting and to maybe put like edible garden things in there. So, you know, berries and different things like that. Teresa mentioned the dog park on the end for maybe the smaller dogs or something like that. And yes, absolutely, you know, more play area for the kids and sprinkles, but also thinking about how we can use some of that space specifically for seniors. What can we put there that's gonna, you know, that the seniors, other than just benches, you know, they can lift their legs, they can do different things too. So thinking about putting structures there for seniors, thinking about a space where teens can sit and perhaps have like stationary checker tables or whatever it is that they play or whatever. Having solar panels so that there could be you can charge your phone, charging stations for your phone and what have you. And that would also help if you were doing like exercises, you can plug it into, you can plug your whatever device there and get your juice from there to do your exercise. I absolutely love the way that Garvey Park, and I think that Lauren told me that you did that park. I absolutely love that park when you walk in, even on the hills, how they created the rock climbing looking thing there, you know, and then on the dog park way down at the end. And then, you know, we don't have like the ball field, but there is so many, everybody uses that park. I mean, it was designed well. And if folks haven't had an opportunity to go down to Neponset Street and take a look at Garvey Park, I would recommend that you do, because it has everything and more of what we could have over here, but ours is unique. Those stones that are sitting up on the top, we talked about how historic Four Corners really is. There's a lot of historical buildings in the area, and maybe engraving and having a little history about what's in the immediate area. But you know, like the Lucy Stone School, I don't know what they call it now, but it was the Lucy Stone School. It has like very good significance. And I think that it's something that the kids can benefit, everybody can benefit from. There's so much history in Four Corners, and this would be a great gathering space to learn the history, but also to do all of those things that we spoke about. And dogs are part of people's families too, so there really should be something there, the sprinklers, all of that. So I can go on and on, but I will stop right there because I think you get it.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you, Marilyn. I appreciate that. And thank you for the comments on Garvey. It's really exciting. And one of the things that makes that so exciting is we did have a really great community process there and a lot of really great community feedback, which is why we ended up where we did. So I'm really excited because it sounds like we're headed that same direction with you guys, which is great. And I did just want to really quickly, I know that we have a hand up and we're going to get to you in just one second, but I did just want to let everybody know that it seems as if our chat has been bombed with some inappropriate comments that I know are not coming from the people whose names are associated with them. So unfortunately for right now, we have locked the chat for right now. So I apologize for that. So for right now, we are not going to be accepting comments through the chat, but we'll be accepting them verbally. And hopefully we don't have any other issues. So I just wanted to make people aware of that in case you're trying to tell us something on chat. That's why it's been disabled for the moment. So I apologize. And Loomis, is that how you pronounce it? Sorry.
That is correct. Loomis,
Okay.
it is. Yes. Hello,
Welcome.
everyone. My name is Loomis Elair, and I am new to Boston as of June. And,
Welcome.
I'm new to Tonawanda as of August 10th. Just moved in. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, not even August 10th. That's when we closed, but we moved in last Friday. And when we first saw the park, me and my fiance were excited. So we were very appreciative for this opportunity to just be part of the conversations to shape what this park will look like. And as we thought about it, we haven't even walked up to the park yet. So I'll be there for the pop in or pop up. One of the things that I always think about, I'm a tree person. I don't know anything about trees. I don't know names of trees, but I love trees and I love water. I love the look and feel of trees. So if there's anything I would add to this that hasn't been discussed yet, it is just the walk up to the park, especially from Tonawanda. That's the view I see. Is just interested to hear about the thought in the trees and how they will be part of the landscape and in terms of how we see it and experience it.
Thank you. That's great. I agree. I'm also a tree person. My kids laugh at me that every time I walk anywhere, I'm constantly looking at trees and touching the leaves. And so I get it. And I think that Deb, you guys, I know as we get into the design can really talk a lot about that. But one of the comments before we jump into the other couple hands that are raised, in terms of just parks policy, we love trees too, especially the shade with, climate change and everything else. So in terms of trees, the one thing that I will say is that what we will do is we'll have our city arborist come out and take a look at it. We'll look at, the health of the trees. We'll look at what kind of pruning we may need to do to make sure that we continue the health of the trees. So, pruning any dead wood out, pruning for future growth so that we can keep our trees healthy. And then obviously there is always the possibility of adding more depending on the design. So Iris, I think you had your hand raised next.
There
there
we
you go.
Yes, just coming off of the gentleman before me, his statement about the trees, I think it would be really interesting also that there was information about what those trees were. It's, I think it's really important for adults and children to learn to identify what's around them. And become, in that way, they become more interested in maintaining and becoming a part of the space that they live in. That's all.
I think that's great. Thank you for that suggestion, Iris. That's great. Jen?
I just had two quick historical notes to inform. One is that the original award maps show Tonawanda going through to Washington Street. So the park was, I don't know if that was a paper road only or if it was developed that way and then put it to park. But Tonawanda was a through street in its original layout. And that Tonawanda is one of 3 streets in Dorchester and, to my knowledge, Boston, but I can't be sure of that. That was lined with ginkgos. So when in the 1910 to 23 is about when the houses on Tonawanda were built, and at the time they planted the entire street with ginkgos, and most of them survive. So they're 110, 120 years old. About half of them are female, but we coordinate some urban harvesting when the fruit drops each year. I try and get it out on like Craigslist and stuff like that. The trees that were between Greenbrier and Claiborne, we don't have as many street trees there. And I know it's outside of the purview of your project, but I think it's part of the approach to your project. And getting more street trees in that block again would help towards the city's tree canopy goals generally.
Absolutely. And we're actually, we've been looking at, and I can point that out to our tree crew, is that they've been looking for suggestions from the community of where we needed to add more street trees. So I'll make sure that that gets added, and they may already be looking at it, but I'll make sure it gets added to their list. So thank you, Jen, for that.
Yeah, fabulous, fabulous information.
Does anybody else have any general thoughts or comments? I know that Deb has some images, just some precedent images, not things that we're suggesting, but well, we can get back to that in a second then. Carl, you feel free to unmute yourself.
Thank you. My fault, guys. Last thing.
Oh, no, that's why we're here.
Appreciate it. Up the stairs, when you see that the wall up the first flight of stairs, I think it'd be cool if, you know, there was like a mural or some type of art from a local artist in that area. I think that'd be cool. And maybe not that area, but just in general to add to the park.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marco.
Good evening, folks. This is Marcos from Four Corners Main Streets. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I had a couple of general sort of comments about sort of things to, you know, that we may want to keep in mind. I think that I would agree that it's important for the park to be more welcoming, and what that means to me is certainly on the Washington Street side, maybe set back a little, or include like formal flower beds that can bring some color to the space and better frame the plaza and those spaces that are there. I definitely see the upper level part of the park as sort of more passive and lending itself to sort of multiple types of uses, events and what have you, and certainly the lower part has a lot of components that perhaps are a little more for active use. I also thought that just hearing about trees, I also think that it's important to think about the impact that these trees could have on creating defensible space. I know that we've been out there. We've talked about whether the lighting actually, works with such a thick and healthy tree canopy. And so, what kind of lighting would create safer spaces? Certainly on the Washington Street side, last year when we did a walkthrough, we had Parks Department, and we pointed out the fact that it's almost like a curtain, and so again that raises a question as to whether more people would feel safe and would use the space if it was a little more open. And I think also just the importance of creating a more inclusive space. I think that Jen spoke to sort of multi-generational sort of populations being able to use it, but also multicultural populations being able to use it, and whether the elements sort of are welcoming of multiple cultures and what have you, right? I think the plaza area is also just we've certainly done some programming there. That little slope, the green slope, the grassy area right before the main circle. Again, it'd be great to have sort of terraced space that can serve as sitting, like informal sitting for hosting events and performances on that space. And thinking about what it would look like if we incorporated some kind of ornamental canopies or pergolas that can sort of create some level of shading as well, but even lend some protection during rainy sort of days when you have some sort of questions as to whether to host the event or cancel and so on and so forth. So those are some thoughts that I wanted to put forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcos. Those are all really great comments and thoughts. I love how thoughtful all of these comments are, and it just goes to show how much you guys really, really love your park, which is awesome to see. So I think we can jump in. Oh, Marcos, is your hand still raised from before, or was that another comment?
It was one final comment.
Okay.
That
Absolutely.
The other piece that, again, this may be a far-fetched idea, but certainly, again, the upper part of this park is on the main street, right, on our actual main street, and we thought that that perhaps considering a kiosk of sorts on that upper level, where that could be perhaps in the summertime run, or maybe year round run by some of our youth, but with sort of some key sort of components, like maybe selling like very basic refreshments, providing a way for people to check out board games, so that thinking about families that may feel like, well, I don't want to lug all these things out there if I'm taking the children, but just people knowing that they could get that, as opposed to then trying to figure out what the closest convenience store is, and so on and so forth. We have Snap Chef right next door as well, which again, it's like a great partner for some of our events. So I think that may also add an additional element of use, and I think lend itself to more people using it more consistently. Thank you.
Thank you. And Marcos, I think that's a really interesting idea. And as a parent, I will tell you, I love the thought of having to lug less stuff to a park. And I will also be completely honest that I don't know if that's a possibility or not. But I think it's a really interesting idea. And I think that especially if there's a group like Four Corners Main Streets that might be willing to potentially partner with parks on something, I'm very happy to ask some questions and see if that might be a possibility and report back at our next meeting too. So thank you for that thought. It's very interesting. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm going to mispronounce your name. Mila, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yes, I'm a resident and the former lead organizer for the Greater Four Corners Action Coalition, and I grew up there in Four Corners. So spent a lot of time in Mother's Rest Park.
Mm-hmm.
I got on late, so I did not hear the presentation, so please forgive me. I just saw the email to join. One of the things that I was thinking was, when parents bring their children to the park, they, having maybe some parent exercise equipment or some fitness equipment or something in the park might be a great thing. Also, the lower area on Claiborne Street next to the playground, we've done some events and had yoga and things out there. And it was really great to have that grassy area and to keep that area for things like that. I think that would be a great continued use, and I did not see the presentation, so I don't know what you said. But also actually having some covered space, as Marco said, kind of a little pavilion space, covered area where people could get shelter from the elements. There's also the fact that in the winter, in December, around the holidays, you know, there's that the big Christmas tree and the Christmas tree lighting and things that happen there. So people really want to maintain that opportunity. But, you know, I think that, you know, when we have events around the circle, we've done art displays, we've done dancing, we've done all of that. Maybe really like building up a little more of a little bit of an amphitheater kind of space there for the performance area, and maybe having a few more tables out in that area that are like maybe covered. But I think adding some more trees is really important. I also serve on the Urban Canopy Commission for the City of Boston Community Advisory Board. So the more trees, the better. I think adding more trees is great. Just making sure that we like maybe put some solar lighting to make sure that any the lighting would have stored capacity, similar to what Common Square Neighborhood Development did in the parking lot across from Daily Table, and had gray sky solar that for the lighting in the parking lot to make, you know, Four Corners a greener space with more sustainable type of lighting opportunities, I think would be great. So.
Thank you. And I appreciate all those comments. And just, I'm wondering, Deb, if there's any way we could jump back really quickly to the timeline slide, because I do know we had several people joined after the beginning. So in terms of all those comments, those are fantastic. And where we're at with this presentation for any of those that joined a little bit later is that this is our first meeting and we don't have any designs yet, but we're just here to take that feedback. And also, we know that not everybody can join us tonight, so we want to make sure that people know that we're going to be taking feedback from email, as well as, you know, people can find this presentation on the website. We'll be posting both the video and the slideshow, as well as meeting minutes at the beginning of next week. So people can view it and send comments to me via email, which I'm going to put in the chat as well for those of you who may have joined us. Oh, no, I can't. I can't. So actually, could we, Christine, enable that just hopefully long enough for me to put this in there for people?
You can still put it, they just, no one can write.
Okay. There we go. Okay. And then also for those who joined a little bit later as well, the project has a project website, and I am also going to put that in the chat. So just want to make sure that people knew that they could continue to give us feedback. And then also we're going to have a pop-in at the park on Thursday of next week from 4 to 6 p.m. So people can also join. We'd love to see all of your wonderful faces too, if you're comfortable. So don't feel like you can't come if you already came tonight. So I did just want to make sure to throw that out there for people who came in a little bit later. And then Jen, I know you had your hand raised, and then Deb, maybe after that, we can jump into those next slides too.
So I just wanted to ask how the proposed budget was arrived at, and if it has flexibility, because if Deb's team creates a wonderful design that we love all the elements of, like, who do we need to shoehorn to make sure that you have the funds to make it happen?
That's a great question. And in terms of budgets, what typically happens is our team at Parks does an initial estimate without a design, right? That's just very knowing space, knowing our parks, knowing about the square footage, price per square foot of what parks typically cost that have whatever the same features are that are in parks. We put together a preliminary estimate, put a contingency on it, and that's what's requested from the budget office. So that's, and sometimes it changes, right? That goes through the whole budget process. It goes through City Hall. I don't know, because honestly, I didn't do the original estimate. I'm not sure how this compares to what the original estimate was. Sometimes it comes back more, sometimes it comes back exactly. But then what happens is that goes through the whole city budget process and gets voted on by city council. So that's how that works. And you're right, $1.4 million is a lot of money and it's a huge investment, but it never goes quite as far as our imaginations and everything that communities would love to have in their park. So that's a really great point. And I think that once we get a little bit further into the design, we'll really know how that value is shaking out based on what we hear from the community. But in terms of your question on additional money, there are always things like CPA funds, things like requesting additional funds for from city council. All of those things are potential possibilities down the road once we see how far this budget is going to get us with what the community is excited about. Does that help, Jen? Okay.
So thank you all for, just incredible insight and ideas. So some of these questions you all graciously answered already, but we like to also, and we'll have some of these images also at the pop-up next week. Images that either generate ideas or also say, oh, I don't want to see that at this park. So with the chat enabled, I think I'll speak to these images. And maybe we go, Lauren, I'm not sure when the cutoff is for the meeting. I can either go through all four.
We're scheduled through 7:30.
Okay.
I also do just want to throw out there for anybody who may not stay the entire time, because that chat is disabled, and I apologize for that. We just don't want to have any other inappropriate things put in there. My email address is there. If you would like to be on my email list, I tend to send out emails throughout the project when our next meeting is, a reminder about the pop-up next week. If there are big milestones, or if we do a survey, which we could do to send out to the community, I can send those out. So please feel free to email me if you would like to be on that list. Normally, I would just ask you to put your email in the chat, but I can't do that right now. But also there is a link to be able to email me from the project website as well. So anybody that you know that wasn't able to come tonight, they can do the same thing and get on my email list as well. So I did just want to throw that out there.
Thanks, Lauren. So there is a large playground component of the project. I heard most that sort of everyone that had commented so far that they'd like the playground to be focused on the lower level. So if there's people that feel like there should be play on both levels, that would also be a great thing to hear. But I think we'd like to use the grade to our benefit, but there's opportunities, do we want to add water, both maybe in fountain form or still water? The image B is one where, kids can manipulate the water and it can run and flow. Image A, we have a slope. Embankment slides are really fun. C shows an image of a structure that has some height to it. Because we have that hillside, it could be really fun, and we do have the room to go taller. E speaks a little bit to that. I loved the idea of the board games and the kiosk. My teenagers have been obsessed with ping pong, so I always try to see if people want to have ping pong in the parks. But tables to, there was a lot of great comments about age groups. So I really want to think about seniors. I want to think about teenagers. I want to think about the smallest kids, but also, the adults. I still like to play or exercise. So we can talk about those things, but and we can get also into more detail as we go into more design about materials. There's lots of great wood equipment. There's lots of great steel equipment. And then, also we'll go into more detail later about different types of play, both from mobility and sensory discussions, and certainly accessibility and making things as welcoming as possible. I like this image, G. I'm also, being a designer, I love graphic things and I love manipulating pieces. So there's a lot of equipment or things that create noise, create music. move with wind, but I think it could be great to integrate some art and manipulative pieces for all ages. So what's the park's identity? I was so happy. Lots of folks shared about some of the history, both of the neighborhood, some of the history of the street and the ginkgos coming through. That's just causing a lot of ideas to come into my mind. You know, is this a park that we want to create more green space? Is it a park, you know, we already have the sort of fun gateway? Is there an opportunity for art? A neighborhood member mentioned a mural. I love that idea. You know, could we use the staircase? You know, it definitely needs some repairs, and we're hoping to create more terraces, but likely there still will be a connector that is a stair. You know, can we make it more lively with art? Image 6 is this fun idea about creating spaces within a larger open space. Feels very reminiscent of sort of a fort, or you know, ways to sort of add some fun and color within the park. And certainly if there are any walls, the idea of number 4, they literally painted park on the wall. But there's lots of ways to sort of create. You know, it sounds like this neighborhood is so invested in this park. So let's make it unique. Let's make it very much a park for this specific spot. So I'll be looking to you to keep feeding me all of those ideas. So how do you relax? There's lots of passive and active ways to also use a park that's beyond play. You know, are there opportunities for, you know, image eye at the top, some tiered seating, you know, whether it's for performances, whether it's for teens hanging out or parents hanging out, watching kids run on a lawn. Is there exercise equipment? I love that so many of you brought that up. Is there space for yoga, for other sort of, you know, high intensity workout? I would, in my younger years, I might run the stairs with the gentleman that mentioned the hill workouts. You know, and how do people get, you know, is the site welcoming? You know, do people come by bike? Do people feel, you know, comfortable bringing, you know, all ages through all periods of the park stay? And then a little more detailed and also just some general qualities of the park. I heard people mention more tables. This has become especially really necessary, especially as we've, you know, had such limited space in our homes. The parks have really become extra living rooms, extra study spaces, extra places to host your birthday party. I love the idea of identifying the trees and giving some signage about the education of both the neighborhood and the trees. And maybe, you know, there's opportunities to encourage some other wildlife to come to. I want to make sure that any seating we provide is versatile, but that also meets the needs of a variety of users. This speaks to the inclusion piece, you know, something that's comfortable for seniors, something that feels, you know, great for kids of all ages. So again, I'll push you all as we get into more detail on the design to really, you know, tell me what works for you and what doesn't. And I'm really excited because I can just tell everyone is so engaged and so thoughtful that you're going to make our job so much easier. So that was the end of those 4 questions. Lauren, do you think we should open up to more hand raising? And I can flip back and forth.
I think that works. Marcos,
great.
feel free to go ahead and unmute.
Thank you for that. Just a couple other thoughts that came to mind as I was watching these slides, and I completely forgot to reach out to folks from the Hub Schools program, because we had a conversation about just the importance of this space also serving as an outdoor classroom. And there's so many possibilities, because when we think about like even the water, and I think about just my time in Peru, where you had aqueducts and that have been there for like 300 years, just from stones. And when I heard you talk about the water features, I also I could totally see that happening because of the slope, right? But more importantly, also about the water features, or just the use of water, is that I think it would be great to have an underground cistern that can capture water to be used on the park, if we're bringing sort of water elements to the space, and even if we're not, because I think that we can capture rainwater. And then also, again, thinking about spaces that can serve as sort of more quiet healing spaces, including some kind of small healing garden, where there's spaces that can also acknowledge ancestral stewards of the land, First Nation peoples, and I think that just also thinking about perhaps at the next meeting, inviting some of our local schools. We're trying to, sort of make an effort to invite some of our local schools to just, capture how they can sort of also be active users of the space. It's really important. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Marcos.
So did any of these images make anyone else think of anything, or things that they liked or didn't like here, or things that gave them other ideas? Iris, feel free to unmute.
Okay, color. More color. That's what we need in there also. It's just, I mean, the green of the trees is lovely, but what's hitting me from these slides is color. It brings energy and attraction. So there.
Thank you, Iris. I like color as well. And I know Lauren does.
The other thing that I had thought of as well, while we were talking about putting murals and art on the stairs and whatnot, is as a local artist and knowing that there are other artists, it would be great to have some sort of community participatory event or project to put those colors up and designs up on wherever it's thought of to put them. Anyway, I think a community art project would be great.
I'm over here frantically writing down notes too. Thank you. Thank you, Iris.
Yeah, I like the whole just the art piece of outdoor art, and thinking about, I don't know what that is, where the guy is standing with the tall things that are colorful, but what I was thinking in way of art, and they've taken out of school, is like music, having some type of structure, like a xylophone or something like what that man was standing in front of. That I don't know if that could be something where, I don't know, it like wind gets into it, but it chimes differently, so that young people, well, kids, but anybody could learn like sound, just something that kind of focuses on the senses. So we're hearing, we're seeing, we're touching, we're maybe not tasting, but just something that focuses on music and sound and make it colorful.
Thanks, Marilyn. There's actually a system that reminds me a lot of this, chimes, that we've installed on playgrounds, and it comes with a mallet that you can create music.
Yeah.
Great comments.
Thank you. Mila, feel free to unmute.
Something that I really enjoy doing is going to Lawn on D
Yeah.
in South Boston. And Lawn on D is so much fun because it has games for grown-ups. And like you said, well, you know, we're always gonna be the child who we were inside of the body that we're in. And so we're always gonna want to play in some way. That's why we attracted little children to go outside and play with them when they come into our lives, you know, because that child is always in there. So I like the idea of ways for adults to engage and have some level of play, like some level of fun. And yes, definitely yes, Iris, I love the color thing, color everywhere. We need to just really like liven up that place, paint the stairs, paint the ground, paint whatever, paint a mural, you know, put some color in there, and then have some places, whether it's like they had big, huge games that had like life-size, like chess pieces or something that you could move around. And, you know, so grown-ups and kids and teens can go and play. I don't know where they go after you finish playing with them, but you know, things like that are like really great. And that slide on the side of the hill, that is amazing to go and slide down that hill. I always wondered what we were supposed to do with that hill. It's such a hill, you know, but I think the slide would be great to have things like that. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you so much. I think we'll let you go down first at the opening.
Jen, feel free to unmute.
Someone messaged me and asked me to make sure to mention the request for something like for better bike racks and a bike repair station.
Thank you.
I don't know, Marcos would know better than me. I think where the nearest Blue Bikes is, I'm more familiar with the Dorchester one, and I haven't tracked it around that corner, but anything that helps active transportation to and from the park.
And I know that the BTD has been putting in more Blue Bike stations lately. They just put one in on American Legion by Franklin Park. So I know that they're putting quite a few in. I'm not sure where, but I know they've got a few more coming up too.
And they've got those half-sized ones now, which they didn't have back when. I don't want to lose valuable plaza space to it, but there might be a full, a 12-month a year space connected to the park where it wouldn't have to be pulled.
Makes sense.
Yeah, great.
Marcos, you have your hand raised again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jen, the hub bikes are just 2 blocks over. But I think that beyond just getting some of those, I think again, it would be great to have bike racks for families to be able to secure their children's bikes while they're, you know, they may bike there or what have you. And just having space to secure that's important. Yeah, I was also, you know, that image right there on the lower right-hand side. Every time I look at that, I think about, you know, being out in like Vietnam and seeing those prayer wheels. And, you know, we have a large Vietnamese population, you know, within just, you know, that the neighborhood, like not too far. And again, just thinking about ways that we can both learn about each other, but also acknowledge and affirm you know, who we are, where we come from, that it just does something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. That's an interesting correlation between those. That's great.
Yeah. If no one has other comments, I am curious how people, we've talked about welcoming and making sure the park feels welcoming and defensible. How do folks feel? I mean, there is sort of a fence, semi part of a fence on Washington Street. And then there is a portion of fence, not completely enclosing the play area, but, sort of defining it enough. So I'm curious if people have thoughts. I know that might be sort of a detail thing to ask about, but I'm curious if anyone, maybe nobody's really interested, which is also fine. Like, how would people
Has
feel?
their hands up.
I wasn't going to comment on that. I was going to say something about the fact that the park is in a spot where there used to be a silver and pewter manufacturer, and how could we incorporate some of the history of work and play and manufacturing, and like really kind of putting some plaques about the history of the actual space. Because from what I know, it was actually in that very spot, or it might have been like maybe a spot over or something, but it was somewhere right in that general vicinity. I think it was called Gleason Silver and Pewter Manufacturing. You can Google it. If you look up Silver and Pewter on Washington Street
Okay.
in Four Corners,
Yeah,
you'll
great.
find.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah, there's some interesting history, and also Tonawanda is some of our indigenous First Nation people in upstate New York. So maybe the history of Tonawanda and who that is, so that we could know who some of, what are some of the historical reasons for the naming of the places in that community, or telling a story about the governor's mansion on Mount Bowden or whatever, things like that. Add a little history into the park. I think it would be great for people to like be walking through and then look up and see something written like similar to what you have like around Mass Ave Station, not quite that intense, but that's a lot of writing. But I mean, just little snippets here and there, whether it's on the ground, whether it's some insets of metal, into the concrete of the walkways with little plaques, maybe telling stories about, or other people, artists in the area or something like that. So it's totally not what we're talking about, but.
Oh, no, that's quite all right.
That's
We were
great.
just trying to give people ideas of things to give us comments for. So it's totally fine that it was different. Gary, you've got your hand raised. Do you want to unmute?
Hi, yes. So I don't know where I saw this. I saw this somewhere where they had a live streaming camera that was posted on a post or something. And so people could go to a site and just sort of see like a bird's eye view of the park. And they'd be able to see that, oh, there's people there playing cornhole or ping pong or whatever's going on, and then might attract them to go down when they see more people there. But it was also a fun way for people to just kind of like keep checking on their park to see what's going on and if there's a large number of people or not there. But anyway, I don't know if it's possible, but it's just a thought.
Thank you. It's an interesting one. I don't think I've ever had that one suggested at a meeting before. So it's always nice to hear new ideas too. Well, I'm happy to stay on. I know that we're about 15 minutes before our scheduled end, but if people have more comments, feel free to stay. If not, maybe we'll see you guys next week at the park on Thursday, the 23rd from 4 to 6. Again, feel free to email me if you'd like to be on the email list that I send out. Would happy to keep chatting if there are people who want to stay, but thank you guys so much for your time tonight and especially for your excitement about the project. It makes it even more fun for me. So thank you.